Hey, everybody. It's Michelle, and I am completely cup runneth over with joy because today I get to announce that Chasing the Swallow, Truth, Science, and Hope for Pediatric Feeding and Swallowing Disorders is 100% done and in publication, and you can check out your copy on Amazon. And the best part, if that book moves you, if it grows your evidence-based triangle to engage in interprofessional practice, to do the root cause analysis to why the child is presenting with the PFD, to then engage with the team to get that child to a point of healing so that the real growth can begin, then y'all check out speechtherapypd.com because they are gracious enough to entertain all of these amazing, joyful ideas. And they're currently carrying the book for 13.5 ASHA CEUs. So thank you for being a part of the First Bite journey that led to Chasing the Swallow. And be sure to check out speechtherapypd.com for the 13.5 ASHA CEUs that accompany it. Happy learning. Hi, folks, and welcome to First Bite, Fed, Fun, and Functional, a speech therapy podcast sponsored by SpeechTherapyPD.com. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, CLC, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, here in Coletown, South Carolina, and I guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically complex and fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light, hope, knowledge, and joy to the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate.
By way of a nerdy conversation, so there's plenty of laughter too.
In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding,
ethics on how to run a private practice,
pediatric dysphagia to clinical supervision,
and all other topics in the world of pediatric speech pathology. Our goal is to bring evidence-based practice straight to you by interviewing subject matter experts.
To break down the communication barriers so that we can access the knowledge of their fields.
Or, as a close friend says, to build the bridge.
By bringing other professionals and experts in our field together, we hope to spark advocacy, joy, and passion for continuing to grow and advance care for our little ones.
Every fourth episode, I join in. I'm Erin Forward, MSP, CCC, SLP, the Yankee by way of Rochester, New York transplant who actually inspired this journey. I bring a different perspective, that of a newish clinician with experience in early intervention, pediatric acute care, and nonprofit pediatric outpatient settings.
So sit back, relax, and watch out for all our squirrels and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. All right, everybody, we are back. I also kind of like the numerology behind today because it's like 2/22/22. Is it the 22nd? Yes, 2/22/22. And I just think that's really pretty. So yay, we'll start out with a geek moment. Today's guest is none other than Megan Branham, and she is first and foremost a working mom, complete with Grinch PJs recording, and I'm in mismatched leggings, so we're crushing this today.
Yes.
Yes. And two, possibly one of the largest advocate for children that I have ever been blessed to know. She wholeheartedly pours her muchness into the least of these. And I have witnessed her speak inspirationally to my graduate students, to colleagues. It is just absolutely profound, the wisdom that she has. So I am So grateful that you are here today, Megan. So hi.
Hi, thank you so much. This is the best way to spend the start of my day, hands down, is your energy. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on again. I am loving
Yes.
this.
Oh, yeah. She's a repeat, y'all, because I
The
kind of love
repeat.
her.
We have all the conversations about all the things, and hopefully people get a little nugget out of all of this. So it is so great to be back.
Yes. And y'all, I have to preface our conversation today with some of possibly the most humbling news. My hands are shaking. I've got I can feel the irregular heartbeat happening. I found out about 30 minutes ago that this little dream of First Bite touching lives, that God has blessed this beyond anything I possibly could have ever hoped for and envisioned. First Bite's been downloaded in over 100 countries. Y'all are listening all across America, Canada, Mexico, Australia, Nepal, Kiev City, Ukraine, India, China, Zambia, countries I didn't even know were countries because I don't really look at a map very often. So that was very interesting. But I am so grateful. Good God Almighty, so grateful. But also, let me preface this conversation with we're going to talk about local community resources for caregivers. And a lot of our local community resources are based around South Carolina, USA. So please try to find, how would you say this, Megan? Something similar in your neck of the woods?
Yes, absolutely. I am just so floored. What an amazing reach you are having. And yes, I think, at its core, community engagement is the same everywhere. I mean, it's people connected, doing the work, and the principles apply everywhere in some shape or form, certainly
Yes.
with modifications and changes to adapt to the communities you live in and love, but the same rules apply all over the world, all over the world.
Yes, yes. Okay, so talk me through. How did you, in case somebody hasn't heard your first episode, can you walk me through how did you, your schooling and how you became a child advocate?
Absolutely. So it's been quite a journey. And, I always tell, I always tell students that I work with is if I had to guess when I was in, undergrad or graduate school, what my career would look like now, I don't think I could have ever imagined it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not in the best possible ways, but it is not sort of what I pictured it to be. But it has been an amazing journey and you have to be open to it, right? So I always tell the students that I work with is just be open to it, follow where the journey leads you, and it may be right for you now and something else may be right for you later. And so you just kind of continue to refine yourself and your work until you kind of hit that sweet spot. And it will happen. It will happen at various points in your professional journey. But my journey started, I'm a social worker at heart. I didn't know there was a word for it until I got to school. And I was like, oh, I really like this sociology stuff. I am super into studying people and working on identifying ways to improve people's lives and health and all of this. And so it was really from me getting exposed to those conversations in undergrad led me to the University of South Carolina with the College of Social Work and really had a focus for me on working with communities and organizations. So my colleagues in social work that do the direct practice have my utmost respect. They're the ones that are doing the case management, working directly with families or individuals. I just knew that wasn't my path. I knew that that was not in line with what I really felt to be true to myself. So I pursued a bigger, broader approach to the work and worked in teen pregnancy prevention programs, working with community organizations and schools on to really addressing perinatal health in the state of South Carolina, working on child abuse and neglect prevention work, and then sort of segueing from there into working with organizations in foster care and then bigger other groups that were working on public health issues affecting the state. So I've had kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. That's, what I love, a new challenge, a new approach. But, fast forward, here I am, like 15 or so odd years into this journey. And I'm like, I know enough, but at the same time, gosh, there's still so much more I don't know and that I want to learn. So yeah, that's it.
You say 15 years plus, and I'm like, ooh, and this is why I have the Botox.
This is why I wear the under eye concealer. This is why.
Oh man, I'm running low.
Right. This is why I don't sleep at night. These are the things, right?
Yes,
so we have lived
yes.
it and seen it and experienced it. And oh my gosh, so fortunate to still be in the game. So yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. On that note, I highly recommend Pout Makeup on Divine Street if you too also are running out of under eye cream.
Yes. Love a plug. Love it.
Oh man, that's funny. Oh God. See, also I've hit the age now that if I laugh that hard after having had pneumonia, flu related, folks, not COVID related, there's a 50-50 chance I might pee. So oh my God, that's great. Okay. So,
I love it.
And this is why you turn in from across the world to hear my bladder insufficiency. Okay, so I'm going to go back
we're
to
just
the
normalizing it. We're just normalizing the human experience, right? Like we all can relate. So
yes.
Oh my goodness,
that's great. Okay, so I'm going to take it from the top, from patient perspective. Okay,
sure. Yeah.
So I get a script. And it says speech therapy, eval, and treat. Fingers crossed, it actually says to treat or eval the thing that it is that they want me to eval and treat, because half the times it says, because parent says so. And I'm like, ooh, that is not going to apply for their private practice insurance. But I get the family, and either I go to their homes or they come to the clinic. And when they come to the clinic, it's a little bit more skewed, right? Because when they're at the clinic, I can't see their natural environment. But case in point, little one comes in and they have thin clothes on, snot on their face, maybe not a warm winter jacket, but a blanket wrapped up. Mom's disheveled. Everything's got a good, healthy layer of grime on it. And I start talking about, what are we eating? What formulas are you using? And maybe mom alludes to the fact that the formula is running low at the end of the month. And, baby has failure to thrive. So I'm reading between the lines and wondering whether or not they have enough food in their home to feed this child. And as the speech pathologist here in the state, I do not act as the service coordinator. That falls on the shoulders of either the service coordinator or the early interventionist. But I need to know what supports are available so that I can maybe talk to the parent in the moment, if the moment arises, or to circle back around to pediatricians, because let's be honest, not all pediatricians know the community supports. So where do I go and how do I start that? Just simply getting the bare bone basics for hunger covered.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. That scenario, I mean, it's so common, and we could literally fill the entire podcast time just talking about that one family.
Yes.
I think what's important in this work is to, we all come with our own frames and perspectives of what we think families should look like, kids, the way kids should act. And so we have our own perceptions and bias of, absolutely. So, I think, I always say the work always has to start with ourselves first, right? We cannot do truly the work that is needed if we are not willing to do the work on ourselves first. So I think in order to, start effectively, just acknowledging that like, I'm going to look at this family and there's going to be things that I'm not going to be cool with because, my perception or what I value is not reflected in this family. So I think you have to very quickly in those scenarios, right? Because this is happening in real time. You're not like, hold on, please, mom, let me just address my biases and then I will get right back to you. But you have to quickly, pivot from that and start where people are. You have to seek to understand, and you have to lead with
Yes.
love, right? And
Yes.
it's so basic, it's so fundamental, it's so incredibly hard, especially with all the factors of honestly the world right now, burnout, fear, loss. It's really hard to settle yourself into a place as a practitioner and be able to approach a family that way. But I think the best thing that one can do, and because it goes against Michelle, I think everything our inclination is, which is to immediately fix it, to immediately provide a solution. You have to flip everything on its head and again, seek to understand, start with the questions, start asking, like you said, tell me a little bit about what are your concerns today? What's on your mind? What is it that you are concerned about or have questions about, and, getting them to respond and tell you in their own words kind of what the challenges are can really help you better identify a solution. And so this is where I think it's so critical for, we've talked about it before, these are multidisciplinary teams and the supports of having someone who can come in, you can go to and say like, hey, something's not quite right, sitting quite right with me on this family. Like, here's some things mom said. I asked her about this, this, and this, but I'm really not sure where to go. And I can pass it off to, an organization that maybe it's a local food bank, or maybe it's a local community organization that just works to provide supports, housing, transportation, clothing, that sort of thing. Just be like, I'm not really sure where this fits, if this family would be eligible, but like something's there. And then kind of hand it off to them to let them to like dig in a little bit further. So that is an incredibly long answer to your question. But, I think it's one of these things that we just have to we have to approach it with the right mindset for sure.
Yes. Okay. So you hit on how you ask the question, and that is key. Folks, there is family guided routines based interview model out of Florida. We've talked about it on prior episodes with Carrie Ebert, good God Almighty, Carrie Ebert, the one and only, as well as we sprinkled it in throughout. They have a website. It's like FGRBI, and they have models of how to ask these questions that you can download for free. And
Love
they're
it.
high quality and researched, right? Yes.
Love
yes.
it.
So if you have a tube-fed child and you're here in the continental United States, because I don't think yet that they're shipping internationally or to Alaska and Hawaii, and you have a family that's in critical needs, Dysphagia Outreach Project can put tube feeding and dysphagia supplies in their hands. So if they have PFD, dysphagia falls under the larger umbrella of pediatric feeding disorders. So remember, you can walk them through how to fill out the application online, or you can provide them the information, or just like Megan said, provide it to the person to help them. So whether that be pediatrician, nurse practitioner, maybe the family already has social work involved and you can give it to their social work case manager, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and I think, I'm looking at this piece of paper on my wall because, I'm the queen of Post-it notes. I love a Post-it note, and I have approximately 1,000 of them around my office. But they're my little reminders. They're my little brain blurps. And I have one here that's, I wrote down stigma and shame. And I wholeheartedly, in total transparency, subscribe to the school of Brene Brown. And I've probably mentioned her before on your podcast.
Yes.
And Glennon Doyle, another just phenomenal human being who is sort of normalizes all of this. But what my thought was about the stigma and shame is that there's so much stigma attached to a lot of these issues that you laid out, or the challenges with families, whether it be a diagnosis or, struggling to put food on the table or lack of employment, right? There's stigma attached, whether it's self-imposed stigma, right? For someone that puts on themselves or that society puts on that person. And so by default, there's going to be shame associated with it. And so I think in order to sort of break through that, leading with vulnerability, asking them the questions and seeking to understand and not sort of add any more additional shame or blame to it, right? We're not trying to like point a finger and be like, why didn't you get food? Or why, I know that you got food stamps. Why did you not use your food stamps to purchase blah, blah, blah? Like we're not doing that. That helps literally no one. We want to understand where they're coming from so we can help them get where they need to be. And I think, again, it's hard in that real time, but I love, 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 love that the resources that you mentioned, like there are good examples you can sit through and read through and practice and process in your head so that when you're in those scenarios, it just gets easier to actually do.
Yes. Okay. Wait. Vulnerability, being vulnerable. Maria from SLP Wine and Cheese always teases me not to engage in self-deprecating humor, to have a positive narrative to myself, because I am the queen of self-deprecation, right? So Maria, just clog your ears and pretend I'm not talking right now. But there is a fine line between self-deprecation and vulnerability.
Sure.
And that multisyllabic word I cannot say. But when I have a new patient that's going through the muck and the mire and struggling with, well, why can't my child do this?
Yeah.
I open up and get raw and real about Bear's walk. And I'm like, look, I'm a speech pathologist. Bear was in therapy for 4.5 years. Like, his favorite thing to say was fire trucks. And it came out as fire 4-letter words. I can't say it because they would edit it. And that was after 3 years of therapy to get there. But that's key. But I meet them where they are. And you know what? I see the caregivers breathe a sigh because in some way, I've been similar to where they are. I will never be in their shoes, but I can at least see it from the other side.
Oh,
so
I love that. Yes. And it's so important. And again, I think, it's not that you are self-disclosing all of your family history, and then exactly. And then let me tell you what Bear did next, but it's let me just provide a connection point. And you speak to, like you said, you speak to the similarities that you have. I was just having this conversation with a colleague the other day, and I said, I'm a mom. I think what's unique about my experience is that my daughter was adopted. And there's a lot that comes with that, of being an open adoption, knowing some about her biological family, but not knowing everything, but knowing that there are certain challenges that arise with that and that aren't always identified right at birth, that come about, later in life, and is trauma, is, dealing with attachment and grief and loss and all of those things that are so complex, but, that we're living with every single day. We're dealing with it in some way, shape, or form. And so just to kind of say hey, nobody's got it figured out. Nobody really knows. Nobody has a perfect family and has everything great. There's always something that people are struggling with. And I think, like you said, it just sort of gives people a chance to breathe and be like, okay, so I'm not the only one. And I think too, your families, if you are talking to that mom and mom is just in a spot of just devastation, right? Of just my heart is broken for what's going on for my child and my family, of being able to speak to her heart to heart. Because I think, sometimes what happens is, we can miss an opportunity or misread a situation and try to respond head to heart. Do you know what I mean? We might respond to mom about well, the data says, the research says, blah, blah, blah. That's all the head stuff, right? That's the technical.
I've totally done that.
Oh, guilty is charged. Guilty is charged.
Yes.
I will launch into, well, the data and the research. And I'm whoa, whoa, whoa. Read the room, Megan. This is not what this person needs in this moment.
I'm like, woman, get out of your head. Read the room. And I tell that to Goose all the time when he starts picking on Bear. I'm like, dude, read the room, man.
Just pick up on these clues we're putting down. Right. But to take a second and be right now what I'm hearing is mom is struggling with this emotionally. And so this is the reassurance that she needs. Or, mom, and I say mom, but it could be dad, grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever, caregiver, caregiver is really concerned about what treatment looks like. And they want to talk specifics about treatment, okay, great. We can get into that space of the head-to-head conversation of here's what the treatment process looks like. Here's kind of what you can expect, that sort of thing. But, I think all of this is just building opportunities. It's creating opportunities to build trust, right? And then it's like I think about it because I love a visual image. I just think about it like a garden and a stepping stone. So like you are just laying one stepping stone at a time. You don't have to build the entire pathway all at once, but you're just putting down one piece of rock and then the next and then the next until, you get the family to where, they need to be. So it's a process.
Yes.
It's a process, and we have to give ourselves grace in that process for sure.
Yes. Yes. As I'm sitting here thinking of to-do list, must-do list, and grace for myself with so many things. Yeah.
So many things.
Yep. So many things. Yes. So I have to go to a place that's still hard for me to go to. Folks, if you've never heard my walk before, I am a domestic abuse survivor from my ex-husband who never hit me until we were married and then routinely beat the hell out of me after that. And I am alive because I took the bullets out of a gun one night, or I wouldn't be here. And that is a story that my children do not know, but one day we will have that conversation. And I mean, we're talking like it's a decade plus, like 12, 13 years later. But if I think about it hard, you're right back in the moment. So super vulnerable moment.
Absolutely.
But I say that because of the walk that I walked, I am acutely tuned in to those signs and symptoms in my caregivers and in my patients. Probably like hypersensitive to, well, obviously hypersensitive to it, but I mean, it is what it is. So as a licensed professional, y'all that are listening, as a licensed professional, as a student clinician who is working under a licensed professional, we are mandatory reporters. And that is also a hard walk. And remember, social workers are not going to bust down the doors and remove a kid from the home unless it is, correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, absolutely the last resort. Isn't our goal to keep the families together and see them healthy and growing and nourished, right? But at the same time, if there is chaos, hurt, anger, and danger in a home from whatever, pick your poison, pick your sin, that is not a place in that moment where a caregiver, if you think about it from the Maslow scale of hierarchy, they are able to educate, inspire, and uplift the little one that is in their lives because they are struggling for basic needs. So when you are a mandatory reporter, but who do you report to? On my side, I mean, yes, we do have to reach out to social services. We have to reach out to the pediatrician. But first and foremost, are you in a position where you can have a crucial conversation with the caregiver? And then you do need to work the chain of command with even your own place of employment, right? Talk to your supervisor, talk to the director of rehab, talk to whomever, you report to. And if it's a dangerous situation, you do have to extricate yourself in order. Is that the right word? Extricate, extrapolate. Pull yourself out of the sticky wicky.
Out of there, yes.
And then go. But what if it's a situation where, and this is how I felt, the individual can't safely get out, or they have no other place to go to. So, Megan, you've provided a ton of resources in our states for situations like this. But folks, I mean, when she's going through this list of resources and plugging all these spots of healing, remember that there are places similar to this where you are. All right, so Megan, I'm going to hand it to you. Can you tell us some signs and symptoms that are red flags and then give us some resources? Would that be okay?
Yes. Thinking about resources. And thank you so much for sharing that story because that is, again, talking about vulnerability and being able to share that and recognize that that's your experience, that's where you come from, and you use it to really serve your patients and your clients. I mean, that's amazing. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I think it's not gosh, you're right. Like you're just kind of right back in it. And then, you think about there are so many families that are living this right now at this exact moment, probably just houses down, right? So, recognizing that. So, a couple things. I think, like you said, safety is always paramount, and recognizing situations where it's like, yeah, probably is not the best space for me to be. So I'm going to need to either, definitely not go by myself, definitely pull in another colleague. And again, about the shame, not feeling shameful, like I can't fix this, right? So like, not your job, not your role to fix everything. Just know that like
Wait, say that again for all of the fixers in the room. It is
Oh my
not your
God,
role to fix everything. Let it go. Let it go. Let it
right,
go.
as
Okay.
Elsa said,
Sorry.
let it go. Yeah. So, we cannot fix all the things. Try as we might, as much as we would like to, we cannot fix all the things. So just like fix what's right or identify what's right in front of you, and then figure out who you really need to pull in to address the situation. So yes, being a mandatory reporter, reporting to social services, involving law enforcement when appropriate. Certainly those are the systems that exist to protect vulnerable populations. Now, every situation, every system, right? Not perfect, but these are the systems in which we're operating, and we have to, use them as best we can to make sure we're all safe and taken care of. So with that being said, I think it's helpful to know what else is out there in terms of support for families or for children. I immediately go to, in South Carolina, we have a really strong, robust network of child advocacy centers, which provide a lot of support and, cover a lot of services, everything from forensic interviewing, where, a child is brought in who's experienced some type of trauma. There's a trained professional that can sit down with them and, again, ask the right questions and sort of get some information from them in order to help identify, what services they need, and if there's any sort of, other steps that need to be taken to make sure that that child is safe. So, providing therapy to a child or to a family member. A lot of times our child advocacy centers work very close with our domestic violence shelters or domestic violence organizations, right? Because they often go hand in hand. And so, they are there as well. And again, knowing that there are individuals who are trained, very specific, like to address a very specific challenge or issue, to me provides a lot of reassurance, because again, it's like, we don't have to know everything. We don't have to fix everything. But if we know that like, hey, there's a child advocacy center right down the street from me, or, this organization I can connect, a caregiver with, and then they can take it from there. I think it's really important to know just what's in your surrounding area so that you kind of, and build relationships, right? Like so basic, just build relationships, just like ask like, hey, what is it that y'all do? Here's like a little bit of what I do. What are ways we can work together? We're obviously serving the same population, chances are. So how can we work together to better serve them?
My favorite, sister care.
Oh,
I'm 1,000% biased.
yes.
I love sister care. Sister care is the one that I go to.
Yeah.
And they've done amazing things, including even getting a patient out of the state.
Wow.
Right?
I know. And I feel the same. Like there's so many organizations where I just have such an affinity for, because like you said, like you've seen the work that they've done. Like you have to get to know, in your network, in your community, build those relationships. And, the advocate in me also cannot I can't miss the opportunity to really emphasize the importance of building relationships with elected officials at a state level, at a local level, because I think, Michelle, a lot of times we see the gaps in services, right? We're like, hello, why is this treatment not covered under insurance? Or why do we not have, fill in the blank available to give to our clients? And so I think understanding too that elected officials are obviously part of the community. They live in the community. They know the community. Their intent for running for office most of the time, I would assume.
Theoretically.
In theory, right. We'll talk, most people are doing it for that reason, is to serve their community. And so, I think one thing to keep in mind is, again, building relationships with those individuals to say, look, like we've got a huge gap in services here, right? Like we're seeing families that we can't provide a service for. I mean, it's dire. And I think bringing the issues to them, with or without a solution, you may have a solution, but I think the awareness, first and foremost, is the most important piece, because I always tell, organizations that we work with that, I think often feel very siloed because they're like, we are the only group that is experiencing this. Like we are the only organization or group of providers that is experiencing this. And they're like, we don't want to say anything, or we think it's unique to us. And I'm like, no. Take it to the next level. Go to oftentimes it's your state representative or state senator and tell them, I said, because I would guarantee you, this is not going to be the first time they've heard about it. Someone else has mentioned this to them, and now they hear from somebody else, and now they hear from somebody else, and now it's piqued their interest, right?
Tipping point.
Exactly. Now it's enough to be like, oh, this is something I need to look into. So I just always, caution people away from thinking about it that way, because, that's where things get stuck and nothing moves. If you're just kind of like, well, it's just us, I'm the only one, or we're the only ones, no, that's not the case at all. And you have to sort of engage in those relationships and conversations in order to like really elicit any type of change. So I have to mention that because I think it's so important to just have those relationships, put stuff on their radar, be like, hey, this is kind of what's happening now. I want to figure out how we address this, how we work together to solve this problem.
Okay. So many thoughts. Yeah. One, folks, this is why you have a state speech pathology association. Embedded within that, you should have on your board a VP of governmental affairs. And I will say it again. Let me get on my soapbox. Also, I may or may not have physically moved my body in my chair. ASHA does not advocate at the state level. They cannot, because they have to register a lobbyist, and the lobbyist can be registered at the federal level. So they can address federal issues. They can give guidance behind the scenes for consultative purposes at the state level. So if there's an issue unique in your state, it's you, dude. It's you. So if you're going to gripe about an issue with one breath, let's all be uncomfortable together for a second. Then with your next breath, you send an email. Please do them politely. Maybe review them a couple of times like yours truly has to do before she hits send, and or put the coffee cup down so that it's not as many exclamation points as in the first email draft. But send the email or text message or phone call to that liaison, that person on your state association board. Also, most states have something called a disability board, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Here in South Carolina, it's a South Carolina Board for Disabilities and Special Needs that covers addressing unique individuals' needs across the life continuum, right? And they're made up by members theoretically from across the state in different walks. Normally there's a lay person. Normally there's a couple of professional people. There should be a caregiver. If there's not a caregiver, then we need to work to fix that. But those people make up that board. And you know what? In South Carolina, that board liaisons with our governor, right? And take the politics aside, because trust me, I have to take a couple big deep breaths to walk away there for a second, but take the politics aside, put yourself on that board.
Right.
Advocate.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so that's a personal goal of mine. Also, I'm kind of thinking I want to go back and get a master's in public health, because I kind of may or may not want to take over and work my way into being the director of the state early intervention system. And I'm just going to manifest that, because that's what Erin says, the word that I'm looking for.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't know me, but I'm so angry all the time at our state EI system. And I'm like, I'm going to fix this. So
yeah, right. Whatever motivates you, right? Use it. Yes. Use the fuel for the fire. Oh, yes.
Take my anger, make it good. But it's fine. I am a totally normal individual. But with that,
I really think that put yourself on those boards, make those opportunities for yourself to change these things. Okay, those were a couple of thoughts. Can I list off some of the specifics and then you can talk about their roles and how they can help our caregivers?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So charlestonhalos.org, literally never heard of them. What is that?
Really? Okay. Near and dear to my heart. So Halos is an organization that works with kinship caregivers. So these are grandparents, aunts, uncles, family friends that have taken in a child or children because mom and dad or primary caregiver are not able to. Sometimes they're involved in the foster care system. So kiddo goes to live with grandma instead of going into a foster family, or dad's in treatment. And so aunt takes in the kiddos while dad's in treatment. So they're acting as their primary caregiver. And I tell people all the time, kinship care is not new, right? Tale as old as time. We look out for our family. We probably all, if we think back on our own family of origin, there are stories or people you didn't really maybe think of it at the time, but you're just so-and-so lived with grandma. And I never really thought about that, but that was kinship care. And so Halos is an amazing organization that, honestly, in the last 10 years in South Carolina has really elevated the needs of caregivers, caregivers need a lot of support, right? So you can imagine just the emotional challenges that come with let's say I'm grandma and my son's recovering from substance use and I'm dealing with that while I'm dealing with caring for his son, right? So
and in my head, I'm was probably discharged from the NICU and has neonatal abstinence syndrome. Exactly. And now maybe they had a stroke and we have all these things. And so,
and I'm 60 years old and I haven't raised a baby, in 30 years. And I don't know and now I'm dealing with a very medically complex child and I don't know what to do. So it's stuff like that where it's, making sure caregivers are equipped with the resources and supports they need, whatever their situation may be. And the one thing I have to say that I love about Halos and what they're building is they're really building a navigation system. So they're walking alongside the caregivers, and touching base with them because oh my gosh, Michelle, what you needed as a mom of a 1-week-old, totally different than what you needed as a mom of a 4-month-old.
I have to interject with one very comedic, amazing point. My husband has a bougie booty, okay? And I promise this is connected. He has a bougie booty. And so I blame the Army. And so now, courtesy of some residuals from the Army, he wanted up a day, right? Apparently they get lower back pain and hemorrhoids and it's a thing from carrying rucksacks, whatever.
Oh okay. My word. Okay.
We got up a day.
All right. Tell me more.
Yes. Okay. I now know that every new mom wants a bidet, heated seat, bougie booty bidet. So I know we're talking about something very serious, but put that on the top of your wish list.
Put that on the registry, on the baby registry, right? Baby bottles and blankets are great, but mama needs a bidet, okay?
Yes. So that's high maintenance. And trust me, I have torn the Mickey out of him for having a bougie booty. And then he goes, baby, would you just try it? I will never go back. I will never go back.
You're converted. You're a fan for life. No, but that's so true. And I think about unless you'd had that experience, right? You wouldn't even know that was a thing. But to be able to be okay, I can walk alongside you, right? Because I've been there. And I can be dude, let me tell you what you really need. That life-changing, completely life-changing.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. It was a very heavy moment. And all in my head, all I could see was the little warming seat with the scorch a booty thing. And I was like, ooh. Sorry.
I love it so much.
Yes. Okay. So back to charlestonhalos.org. Yes. And they're going to receive a shipment of bidets from somebody somewhere.
What is this? What happened? So yes, there's organizations like Halos, that are in South Carolina, at least, that are sort of building Kindred Hearts in Columbia, Pendleton Place in Greenville. There's these other amazing organizations that have kinship caregivers front of mind and are working to serve them. So I feel sometimes they seem like a little bit of a lost population, right? But at least in South Carolina, I mean, there's estimates of like 60 some thousand kids that live in some type of kinship care. So chances are, the families that you're working with, it's probably a kinship care, situation, and it comes with its own set of unique challenges. And so just knowing like Halos is an amazing organization to reach out to, and we can definitely put this in the show notes, but there is now a website, SC Kinship, and there is a toll-free number that you can call and just say like, hey, I don't know what services are available or what to do, but I'm working with this caregiver and can you help me? So kinshipsc.org is a great place to start too.
All of the show notes, folks, are available on speechtherapypd.com. They automatically translate. Sometimes the translations are delightful given my Southern Mountain dialect, but they translate and then edit the show notes.
Only imagine.
Y'all sometimes comes out a very distinct spelling in the show notes. So like, you've been warned. So like, we're fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. It's fine. Okay, what is a Courage Center? SC.org.
Yes. So Courage Center, recovery-based organization in the Midlands in Lexington here in South Carolina. They work with youth and families who are in recovery from substance misuse. So had an amazing moment the other day meeting with this group. And Michelle, like, those meetings where you're like, you can just feel the synergy in the room. Like you can just feel all the connection and all the power, and it's just coming together. Oh my gosh. So we had one of those meetings the other day, and it was really talking about what different organizations and, community groups can do to support families or youth in recovery. And a lot of it's about decreasing the stigma, right? So it's like removing the shame and blame and being like, you know what? We need to talk about substance use like we talk about any other like health condition. Like you have a hard time or challenging like getting your diabetes under control or your hypertension. We're going to create a treatment plan, just like we're going to do, if you're struggling with alcohol or drugs. So highly, highly recommend them enough. Again, one thing I love about both Halos and the Courage Center is that there's a huge component of being peer-led. So it's peers to peers.
Nice.
It's someone else who's like, has a lived experience and then the training to be like, look, like we said, I've been there. I've been that new mama. Let me tell you, you need the bidet, honey. You need, I cannot stop laughing about this. We are professionals.
No, wait. Yeah. Originally, Goose was 15 stitches and he was vaginal, but like the story has morphed. And so now I remind him, I'm like, you cost me 25 stitches, dude. And like, he has no idea what I'm talking about. But like, by the time he has kids, it's going to be like 42 or something like that. But like, there was bidet. That's going to be fun show notes.
It's going to be great. So yeah, it's, again, it's all about the connection, right? And so like, if you can connect people with same lived or similar lived experiences, right? Like, oh gosh, what a great place to start from. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening at the Courage Center. So go check them out. And again, a phenomenal resource.
Now this is how you and I kind of met professionally for the first time through the next one. Okay. So Megan and I originally met because we were baby mamas together at the church daycare. Yes. Y'all, I have met so many amazing people from that church daycare.
I'm telling you, amazing.
Right? Like that was a center for healing in and of itself.
Yes, so much.
Also, thank God for Miss Roberta and Miss Alberta. Like, they met me when I was having my worst mom anxiety, like postpartum, and they loved me through my postpartum anxiety 2 times. So God bless those women. But we met at, what is the fall conference? It's through familyconnectionssc.org. And they have a October conference for Down syndrome awareness.
Was it
Hopes for Dreams?
Yeah, Hopes and Dreams. It would have been that. Yes.
Hopes and Dreams. Yes, it was Hopes and Dreams. And so there we are. And I'm like the SLP in the board, or like the volunteer committee, whatever the technical piece was. That was a lifetime ago, by the way.
It was.
And you were, I guess, acting as a family advocate and social
Yeah.
worker on the board?
Yeah. And I was facilitating your session or something, I think is how we ended up
Yes.
connecting there. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was a lifetime ago.
It
And
was.
that's how we first met professionally, right? I was like, wait,
Right.
I know your baby girl. And
Yes.
yes. And it was just like the wildest thing, but like-minded hearts.
Yes.
And
for
so here in South Carolina, we have something called FamilyConnectionsSC.org. Hint, hint, hint. So Family Connections. So can you talk to us about what that organization looks like and what you have witnessed them do? And then I can throw in my like clinician eyes.
Yes, definitely. So Family Connection, statewide organization in South Carolina, working with children and families who need one-on-one support because their children are living with some type of disability. They may need access to health care. They may need, just navigating the educational system and like, what is an IEP and why do I need that for my kid? And like, what does that actually mean? And I can go to an IEP meeting and tell them about like what my child needs and be a self advocate and an advocate for my child. So I have the utmost respect for Family Connection. And I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, I did a project for them in graduate school, like back in the early 2000s, which sounds so insane to say, but and it was around, isn't that wild? It was around like Medicaid expansion and making sure like children were covered and had access to services. And so they are, oh my gosh. I mean, everything from like, you have like a TEFRA application, like you need to fill out a like literally 100-page document to get your kid like coverage.
TEFRA is South Carolina Medicaid that is based upon a disability and not parental income.
Yes.
So states have different names for that entity, but if you have a child that will need lifelong care, but say you make just above the working middle class, the working poor, or even those that have higher income if they need it, they need it. And that's TEFRA, but it is a beast to fill out. Yes, continue. Sorry.
Yes, no, like have witnessed it firsthand. A good friend of mine, and she called up Family Connection and like, there's an actual person to help you like walk you through that, right? Because like parents have enough going on, and a little bit of help really goes a long way. So they really are kind of like the one-stop. They really are kind of the one-stop shop. They're raising awareness. They're helping to make sure kids reach their full potential, whatever that looks like for that child and their family. And they're doing it all in a lot of different amazing ways.
Yes. So Family Connections is, you need to look for that in your state or the variation of that, and look for the organization that isn't afraid to straight up challenge an IEP or an IFSP, because I have seen them go in and send advocates when a school district tells a family, you can't have that. We don't do that. But you know what? They kind of do because it's a federal law.
Right.
I'm like, but
Yeah, there's some equivalent seeming, everywhere, but there's some version of this state, based organization that's parent support for children, with some type of disability. So,
okay. So then I got another one.
Okay.
Beginnings, South Carolina.
Yeah.
Beginningssc.org.
Yes. Another one. Yes. So another organization working with kids and families, but really focused around kids who are deaf or hard of hearing or have some type of maybe unidentified hearing loss that they're working on identifying. And again, goes back to like, let's identify it so that then we can get services for it. Right. And so they are a phenomenal resource that is really serving a very specific population. Not that, every population has their sets of like challenges and needs and strengths, and they just do it so well. So Beginnings is really my go-to. And I have learned all of these organizations, I've learned so much. Like with beginnings, just the language of our, how we talk about hearing loss, and even with the Courage Center, the language that we use around recovery. And so they have so much to teach us professionals that, again, are working with, a community that has very specific needs and can be like a voice for that community and can help elevate their voices. So yeah, Beginnings SC, another phenomenal South Carolina resource. Yeah. And based off of an organization in North Carolina. So very similar. Again, probably some type of similar organization wherever you are.
So this is my mom moment. Bear passed his initial newborn hearing screen and then proceeded to need a helmet because we had labor shot 14 times and his head was all crooked and then his ears were all crooked. And then he didn't pass another hearing test until like several years later. And I have worked early intervention since the moment we stepped foot in South Carolina and was told I had to select early intervention with one entity because he had failed his newborn hearing screens. And it was a state organization. I was not given another alternative. Had I not known my rights, had I not been a clinician, I would have been forced into one organization.
Yeah.
And while it's an all right organization, I knew that there was some, at that time, areas of need, of improvement needed. And this was kind of before Beginnings. South Carolina came to play. And it's my understanding that it was, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but they will be on in a couple of weeks. Also, Megan, thank you for the introduction. Huzzah.
Yes.
They were a entity from a labor of love and frustration for individuals that needed a voice to be heard from I'm an individual with hearing loss first, because diversity and inclusion and having a voice matters.
Yes.
And so I am so grateful that they are here because their presence is challenging status quo and making our state better. And I'm sorry that I missed that window 7 years ago. Grateful for where we are now. Bear's personally fully hearing unless he doesn't want to be hearing. And that's because he's sometimes bad. Like, good choice, bad choice.
He's do his own thing. Right.
He's going to be Bear. But like, and he gets that from his father, not from his mother.
Obviously.
Like,
obviously. Yes. But yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Your listeners have got to tune in to the Beginnings episode when they come on, because Kara and Mary, their story, I love the story of how it started, but you're right. It started from like shared frustration over like what they were seeing in the school district. And, in Bear's case, like you said, like there was services available, maybe not the best, but, now we're realizing that like more services and organizations like Beginnings are filling a gap because, families are, maybe kiddos screened, passes their newborn screening, like with flying colors, but then like goes to kindergarten and like, something's not right. Like they're having a hard time paying
100 ear infections later.
Yes, exactly. 100%. And then you're like, okay. So we're actually like experiencing some, what they call like late onset hearing loss. And this is why we're having a hard time like paying attention, following instructions. Like it's not just like typical adjustment to like kindergarten, but like clearly there's something else going on here. And now this sets us on a different path. And so, organizations like Beginnings and, Family Connection and all the ones that we've mentioned are there to be like, okay, you're on this journey now. So like, let's go there with you because we've been there and we know kind of what's ahead for you. So yeah, doing amazing work.
So we're already over our time because you and I do that. Shocking.
We like to talk and we are passionate.
Yes. So stay tuned, folks. So then Megan will come back in the fall of 2022.
Right.
We'll have to come up with like another cool number to like come back. But
I love that.
Okay. Our other episode, please tune into it. It's episode 158, Childhood ACEs and the SLP. And Megan, ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Events, right?
Experiences, close, adverse childhood experiences. And it's it's the trauma, all the things that happen, prior to 18 that really shape us and mold us and impact us through adulthood.
Megan, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And folks, don't forget, we love it when you head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a review or follow us on First Bite Podcast. I don't know what it is on Instagram. Erin does these things. It's at First Bite Podcast on Instagram and our Facebook page. If there's a speaker that you want to hear from or a topic you want to learn more about, please message us. I know there's like a cool way of saying that, but I don't remember the cool way to say that. So like, just send me a message because that's how I know how to reach people. And as always, thank you for sharing your time with us all around the globe, and know that we literally pour our heart and souls into this. So I am grateful for y'all.
And I am grateful for you and for your listeners. And honestly, the work that, oh my gosh, the necessary but difficult work that y'all are doing every day. It's a lot, but it is necessary. And I feel like I have to close with, again, sticky note on my desk here. I am really loving learning about Reiki and Reiki principles. And maybe that's maybe that we get like really into it next, but like energy transfer and how we like heal and connect. But I feel like this is a good close for today. There's 5 principles just for today. So taking a deep breath, everything that we've like heard and learned and shared today, but just for today, do not be angry. Do not worry. Be filled with gratitude. Devote yourself to your work and be kind to people. And I leave you with that. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Oh, bloody hell. I love you. Okay.
Love
Thank you.
Too. Thanks.
Feeding Matters guides system-wide changes by uniting caregivers, professionals, and community partners under the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Alliance. So what is this alliance? The Alliance is an open access collaborative community focused on achieving strategic goals within 3 focus areas: education, advocacy, and research. So who is the Alliance? It's you. The Alliance is open to any person passionate about improving care for children with a pediatric feeding disorder. To date, 187 professionals, caregivers, and partners have joined the Alliance. You can join today by visiting the Feeding Matters website at www.feedingmatters.org. Click on PFD Alliance tab and sign up today. Change is possible when we work together. That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I'm your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through speechtherapypd.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies. Hey, so it's Michelle Dawson here, and I need to lay out my disclosure statements. So if you ever wondered how bad my ADD, ADHD, and lack of sleep Monday through Monday actually is, well, here you go. These are my non-financial disclosure statements. I volunteer with Feeding Matters. I'm a former treasurer with the Council of State Association Presidents. I'm a past president with the South Carolina Speech Language Hearing Association. I am a current member of both ASHA and SCISHA. And for this year, for 2021, I volunteered for the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Planning Committee for the ASHA 2021 convention. My financial disclosures. All right, so I receive compensation for First Bite presentations as well as talking teletherapy and understanding dysphagia from speechtherapypd.com. I also receive royalties from speechtherapypd.com for ongoing webinars that I have on their website, as well as compensation from PESI Incorporate for a lecture course webinar that I have on their website as well. I am coordinator for clinical education and clinical assistant professor for the Masters of Speech Language Pathology program at Francis Marion University in Florence, South Carolina, for which I receive an annual salary. I also receive royalties from the sale of my book, Chasing the Swallow, Truth, Science, and Hope for Pediatric Feeding and Swallowing Disorders, that I self-published and is available on Amazon. And I do receive royalties from the accompanying 13.5-hour CEU for the book from speechtherapypd.com. So yeah, I stay pretty busy, but those are my financial and non-financial disclosures. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye.